And I'm sorry, the question was?
Is there anyone still investigating the cause of the contamination?
We'll continue to do that. The good thing is the distribution system, or the treatment system for the water will be has already been planned, and I'm sure we've already had a discussion about that. The new treatment system that they have been planning for will be switched over to sometime in the future, and so it's entirely possible that whatever caused it may be irrelevant once they switch over to that new treatment system. The city is inviting in structural engineers and things to help fix whatever potentially could have compromised the system.
So how does the chlorination process that's already gone on and that will continue address these 3 and possibly 4, 5, or 6 other possibilities? What if there is a cross-contamination that hasn't been discovered? Couldn't that continue to contaminate?
Remember, I'm not an expert. So most municipalities include chlorine in their water supplies to kill bacteria that may begin forming and keep it from becoming larger and compromise the water system. So those low levels of chlorine that are currently being added to the water system and that most municipalities have in those water systems do that. So the intent is that while we're waiting for that treatment plant to come online in the city of Alamosa, that will continue to be done so that future contamination will be held at bay.
So you guys will be doing low-level chlorination of the water until
Yes.
at all stages, from the wells through the whole distribution system?
Yes.
And
Comparable to things that most cities are already doing, yes.
And have you guys identified possible spots of concern if you're inviting engineers in? Are there areas that you've sort of thought something could be going on here?
Well, short of pulling the entire distribution system up above the ground, which is not going to happen, it's really difficult to look at everything. I think they've looked at everything that's probable and have acted on that. So I would hope, we're never certain about anything, but I would hope that we've addressed what needs to be addressed to move forward and keep the water system contaminant free. So.
Is there a timeline for when results from the salmonella testing that was done over this last weekend will come back?
Timelines are always kind of, it's one of those things that we hope to have in stone, but we've used the terms bumps, hiccups. What I can tell you is that the progress that's been made has been phenomenal and has really moved faster than what a lot of people suggested early on that the timeline was going to take. It does take time to culture out samples at the state lab, and they're ahead of the process that we had hoped for. So I don't want to put any timelines on it, but I can tell you that once the samples reach the state lab, it's about a 5-day turnaround, and that's from the date of the last sample. After that time, they're going to have to confirm those results and run that by the Water Quality Division and the Consumer Protection Division, and everybody needs to see those to feel good about changing any status with the water supply.
What was the date of the last sample? What was the date of the last sample?
Could be any time now.
Oh, today?
We're still taking samples right now.
When was the last one previous to today?
Well, it depends on which sample we're talking about. There's samples that we're taking for things that we know to be problems in the water system here: arsenic, lead, copper, and then there's also biologicals like total coliform and salmonella. So all those samples kind of have different timelines, which is why I can't be definite. And I don't want to do that because that puts undue expectations on the people involved. So
Parts per million right now compared to what it was a week ago.
if I tell you parts per million, the next question is going to be, what does parts per million be? So, or what is that?
I promise I won't ask that.
I can tell you that most municipal water systems for chlorine, parts per million,
Less than 1?
is between 1 and 2 sometimes, or less, or around 1. Right now, we're working to get the water distribution system down to that level in all areas so that we can do tests and know that the tests are at the drinking water standard for the system. So.
Okay, given the fact that you're about 1% going forward on parts per million, is that right? 1 part per million?
We're bringing the water, the chlorine levels down to normal drinking water levels, yes.
Could you take another swing at the question of recontamination, the concern for it, given that low level of chlorine that you'll continue to introduce?
It will be at the same, the chlorine levels will be at the same safe levels that they are for most municipalities that have concerns about breaches to their water systems. And it's essentially that chlorine levels in there to keep that from becoming an issue. It mitigates any bacteria or any biological organism that would get into that water distribution system.
Effectively prevents recontamination?
Preventing recontamination, yes. Now that it's always a but, but if things happen to water distribution systems, if there's breaches in wastewater, lines that are near those, there's always things that can happen. Those low levels of chlorine are in there to prevent small organisms from taking hold and becoming large problems. So.
How high did you get the chlorine levels at the highest point, and how do you get them back down again? The layman's terms for this is that we sort of shock the system with a high enough level to be certain that any immediate contact with bacteria would be killed. And the level that we had most of the system in for at least a 24-hour period was about 25 parts per million. How do you get it back down again?
Dilute.
Bring in fresh melt water in, or
well, we bring in
in?
Clean water with low amounts of chlorine, so that you're not flushing all the chlorine out of the system, but you're keeping a small amount in there. And that process, like I said, was the engineers from Denver Water and Boulder and Pueblo and all those places did a phenomenal job.
Where does that clean water come from then?
There's actually a clean water source that was outside the city's water system that was held. Actually, maybe I better let him explain.
This is Nathan Trubetsky, our city manager.
Right now what's happening, they've inspected the wells are clean. So at the Weber well, we're injecting chlorine at 2 parts per million, or 2 milligrams per liter. And that is going through the system. So as we bring that out, as they're pulling the higher chlorinated water out, they are also dechlorinating the stuff that they're pulling out and putting into the storm drains. So that process is ongoing, and we'll continue to have that low level of chlorine through the system like most places.
Now, obviously, it took a huge level of chlorine to decontaminate the system. If, for some reason, the source is never figured out, and we do have a salmonella still going into our system, how are the low chlorine levels going to be able to deal with that kind of high contamination?
Well, what we've found in research is that 1 milligram per liter of chlorine will kill salmonella bacteria in 35 minutes. So that's how we came to that conclusion.
More questions? I think the mayor has an additional
just a
statement.
comment. You notice I'm wearing a yellow shirt? I got the yellow shirt on because our entire city is in stage 2, which is the yellow stage. And my wife decided I should put a yellow shirt on this morning, so you know how you guys are. Don't they help you get dressed once in a while? But anyway, our entire city is now in yellow stage, but at that yellow stage, you don't drink our water yet. You use bottled water. And that's why we have 3 water distribution sites over the whole city. The last few days, we've been about somewhere between 15 to 17,000 gallons of water per day have been given out at our distribution sites. So we ask, you can take showers, you can wash your clothes, you flush your toilets. We don't want anybody to drinking water. And that's the most important thing that we need to put out. And we've been putting it out all week. But that's what you need to know also. Our primary goal is safety. It's our number 1 goal, safety for our citizens in any way that they deal with water. So that's basically it.